Welcome back to another episode of Office Hours Podcast with Professor Brad Perkins. Thank you, everyone who is attending. Today, we have a couple of guests from Baker Group. We have Dale, Drent, and Russ Acton, both graduates of Iowa State and graduates of the construction engineering program. We also have a couple of students in-house here that I'm going to introduce in just a second. And then, as always, we have a few call-in on the Zoom line as part of our Construction Engineering 380 Engineering Law class. Later, after we go chat with our guests here for a bit, one of our students also has a case study that he's going to be presenting on. So we got an extra credit case study before everything is all said and done. All right. As always, if you are watching on the Zoom and you want to talk, please turn on your Zoom audio and video so I can see that you're wanting to put something in, and we strongly encourage that you do so. It's always nicer when we can have a discussion rather than just, another boring Zoom meeting. All right. With that in mind, Dale, I'm going to have you introduce yourself a little bit.
Thanks for the invite into the conversation. Dale Drent. Currently, I'm at Baker Group, Vice President of our service group. Brad and I have known each other for many years, measured in decades.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It is
Yeah.
measured in decades. Okay, so in the interest of full disclosure, Dale and I interned together in 2005.
No, late 90s.
No, 2000.
Yeah, you're a decade.
I'm a decade off, God.
Yeah.
1995,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were both working at a local mechanical contractor, just like a semester or two, a year probably apart in classes in the Connie program. Back then, I was the one mechanical emphasis my year, and Dale was like the one mechanical emphasis student like that next year. Was there any others? It was
There was another guy that was from Chicago, and he, I think he ended up graduating, going back to Chicago.
He did. No, his name escapes me, but I know exactly who you mean.
Escapes me as well.
Yeah. No, because he actually emailed me. It's been a while, but he emailed me, looking for students to hire and stuff. So it's like, what you been up to? I was like, holy cow. It's a small world in mechanical. And back then it was really small. Well, we had a problem back then. Remember Dr. Chase, who was our mechanical faculty member, great guy, Dr. Jerry Chase. He's now since passed on. But you want to talk about the example of a scholar and a gentleman, Dr. Jerry Chase.
I would agree.
Right? And he retired like my sophomore year. And then there was no mechanical instructor, nobody pushing that side of construction engineering. Plenty of people that were in buildings or highways and stuff, but no mechanical at all. There was no electrical at all either. And actually, that's actually how I got sucked into teaching again, is that years later, after I'd been out, and like in 2005, I saw Dr. Jaron, Chuck. I saw him at like a Boy Scout event with the kids. And I was like, Chuck, what's going on? We were talking about the program, and it's like, hey, have you guys got a mechanical faculty member there? And he's like, yeah, it's really hard to get somebody, and just don't find that. And everybody's in industry, and they're busy, and blah, blah. And I was like, well, you're always going to have just terrible numbers for it without a champion for it, without somebody to push it or have any industry experience in it or any contacts. You need to get somebody. I was like kind of reading the riot act on it. And he looks at me, he's like, so what are you doing? And I was like, 2005, I just got my PE license. Well, no, by a couple of years, got my PE license. I was in the consulting world down in Des Moines, designing kind of mostly large stuff, high rises, lab spaces, that kind of thing. And I'm like, but I was really unhappy where I was working. My wife had already given me the, you need a different job talk. Like
What's happened?
Yeah. Dale's had this. Yeah, Dale's had this conversation. Russ is like, I don't understand. Okay, there's a talk. Okay, we'll tell. Yeah,
If you're at the wrong employer, there's a talk.
Yeah, if you're at the wrong employer, there's a talk. And the talk is like, your job is interfering with home and family life. Like
True story.
True story. Okay, we both had this talk. And my wife's like, "You're unreliable. I can't count on you to be here. You're missing the kids' lives. You need to rethink what you're doing." And at that time, I was like, "Oh, what am I going to do that isn't the same crap, different day?" You know, I mean, like going to another consulting firm, it'd be the same shit.
Well,
Okay?
the human nature at first starts off with she just doesn't understand.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
there's a back and forth and
Yeah, no,
volume
the
gets
back and
louder
yeah, the
louder
back,
and- yeah.
you're funny. The back and forth. You know my wife, right? You know, the back and forth was like, I'll see what I can do. You know, and I'm like racking my brain and at the place I was working at, which I will not name, you had by that point I was a stockholder, but if you left, they could give you whatever they wanted for the value of your stock. It was a literal golden handcuff, right? I'm like, geez, if I go to another firm, I'm going to get nothing for my stock. You could leave. One way to leave and get full price for your stock was to get fired. And the way to get fired at that particular firm was to make mistakes. I just couldn't bring myself to do that, right? So what I tried was being a really belligerent employee. You know, the type that are like, you know, they're
Strong-willed.
Strong-willed. You know, the type that would like question the management's authority in their decision-making skills. You know, and I thought for sure that was going to get it done, but it didn't because they were so desperate. There was so much turnover. And you listened to the one on Monday, and what we talked about was when you're with a company, one of the best indicators for the health of a company that you may be interviewing with is looking at their turnover. How many people are they losing? Are they replenishing? Are they hiring a lot because they're growing, or are they hiring a lot because a lot of people are leaving? You know, and this was at a time when a lot of people were leaving, and they couldn't afford to lose anybody. So I was belligerent as I could be, and I still couldn't get fired. You know, I was like, oh gosh, this is.
Well, the other end of that spectrum as a hiring manager, one of the first things I look at when I'm looking at a stack of resumes, if somebody's got a decade of experience in the industry or whatever, my first stop is not who have they worked for, but how many years, what's their burn rate. If they're every 2 years they're moving on to something else, there's something unhealthy potentially. That's the first thing to look into.
Yeah,
with that individual is why are you jumping? And is there a good explanation, or is it just there's a personality issue there potentially if somebody's jumping constantly. But the employee looking at a company version of that is what's the turnover rate?
What's the turnover?
And that one's harder to get.
Oh, it is very
Especially if a company's
difficult.
got a lot of turnover.
They are not going to tell.
They will post that on the website.
No, they will not.
And it would depend on where the level of turnover is. Is it senior management and they're just doing great and loving life, but the front line is hurting? That's where it's something to look at too.
That is a very good point because it's what would your peers be going through?
Exactly.
You know, if senior management is leaving and they're like, well, I'm leaving because I've worked here for 40 years and it's just time for me to kick back on the beach. That's good turnover. You know, but if it's people that are in that, I just got my PE license and now I'm out of here. Because that is what a lot of people wait for. They wait till you get your PE license, you get that experience, and now you're like, free agency has its attraction. Okay, but so here's the problem. My wife's like, yeah, you need to make a job change. And I'm like, ugh. What's just going to be same crap, different day? So that's when, Chuck says, what are you doing? You know, and I'm like, I don't know.
He uses your argument against you?
Yeah, he does. I'm like, what am I doing? You know, I'm like, well, you know, so he says, well, we got a class. At that time, it was Connie 251, the plan reading on mechanical and electrical. He's like, we need somebody to help with this class. It meets once a week. And it meets at 3:00 and you know, would you consider helping out with that, just teaching once a week? And I'm like, yeah, that sounds all right. So I go into management, the place I was working at, and I said, hey, they want me to teach this class. Can I get out a little bit early on a Tuesday and do that? And you know, the office manager is like, let me check with the home office. Checks with the home office, comes back. Yeah, that'd be actually pretty good for us. We able to increase our presence on Iowa State campus, maybe help with recruiting, right? Why don't you do that? Go ahead and do that. I'm like, okay, all right, awesome. So I go back up, meet with Chuck, and Chuck's like, talking to me about like 3 different classes teaching, and I love Chuck. All of you, you know, these two do not know. Do you know who Chuck Jaron is?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right. great guy, longtime professor at Iowa State. He taught me when I was a student, and then, and he just retired a couple years ago. I mean, great guy, but sometimes it can take him a while to say something. Just like on and on and on. And like 45 minutes into this, I'm like, he is not talking about one class. Like this sounds like a lot bigger commitment, and I'm like, so I just cut to the chase. I'm like, Chuck, are you offering me a job? He looks at me and he goes, well, I think there's some potential. In a matter of speaking, we have the opportunity to get you on this and that. Yes, I'm offering you a job, And then he's like, this is great. He's like, now, just let you know, it'll only be for a semester, guaranteed, right? You'd be part-time for one semester, and then we'd see if we could just keep going after that. And he goes, and let me just warn you, the benefits are really good. The pay sucks. At least he was honest. He's like, the pay sucks, but you can do all the consulting on the side that you want.
All of a sudden, clink, clink.
Yes, it's like the pieces are coming together. And I said, okay, I'll take it. And he looks at me, he goes, don't you want to know how much it pays? And I'm like, well, you already told me it pays crap. He goes, don't you want to have this discussion with your wife? Because he knows Gina. I'm like, nope, she'll be happy. He goes, oh, okay. And it's only like 4 weeks till the semester starts. And you have to understand, Iowa State does not move very fast in their hiring procedures. It's hard to get a TA on in 4 weeks, much less a faculty member. He's like, well, we kind of got to have a job search, but we're going to write this so that you're the only person that could meet these qualifications. Who else is going to take this job in 4 weeks? So I get hired and change careers totally unexpected, but sometimes it just works out. Now here 20 years later, I'm still doing it. Crazy thing. All right. But back to this. So Dale and I are in Ankeny in a time when there is no mechanical emphasis, no one promoting it. Right? Keep going.
Yeah. And so I ended up in Ankeny Mechanical because the company that you and I both worked for, I was just trying to get a summer job related to engineering. Ended up there and ended up liking what I was doing. I didn't grow up in a construction company or family. Growing up, I wanted to be either an engineer or a farmer, and I didn't have any ground to inherit or anything like that. So that's
out.
So plan B is the backstop. So go into engineering. So I was undeclared, and then really liked what I was doing, and it's construction related mechanical. And then I found out there's an engineering degree. I didn't even know there was a Connie program.
Oh, I didn't either when I came
and
here.
So you should look into construction engineering. Well, what's that?
That's a thing.
And then all of a sudden they have a mechanical emphasis. It's like a degree that was put together that perfectly matched what I loved doing during this summer job that I had, and so everything fell into place for me like that. But my family is not in the construction industry whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so everybody kind of ends up, everyone's path is a little different. A lot of people in construction engineering, maybe not all, but quite a few of them, it's common to have their dad owns a construction company.
Oh, yeah. If you look at our students,
genetics, there's some construction in the family in some way, shape, or form.
A vast majority. I bet maybe not majority anymore, but probably half of the students probably have family or something in. I mean, there's a reason they came into construction. They had to be looking for it. Like I was not looking for. I came out of the Navy operating a nuclear reactor on a submarine. Came to Iowa State on officer program. And I started mechanical engineering because it seemed to make the most sense, right? I get it. Mechanical engineering, boat full of mechanical stuff. That's what I'll major in. And then after like a year and a half probably a year and a half or 2 years of being in the ME department. And you got to understand, this was the 90s. The advising was really bad. Like the generic, like big picture Marston and the ME department advising, it was bad. The whole thing where you go to get advising in Marston, this is way before the remodel, you went to the advising office and at the DOT where you pull a number, that was advising. You went in there and you pulled a number and you waited and they're like, all right, number 30. That time that kid moved on, he had class to get to, 31, and you go up and so you talk to some advisor that didn't know anything about you and didn't even believe you'd make it through. Didn't even believe you'd ever actually become a mechanical engineering student, much less, because you had to get through the pre-ME stuff. They're like, here, you should take some of these classes. Here's some sheets to look at, whatever. I don't really care. I got my thesis to write, so just go on about your business. So after that, for about a year and a half, I was like, this sucks. I'm going to do something else. And I go into the office there after pulling my ticket, meeting advisor. I'm like, hey, I need my folder because back then, Dale, back me up on this, you actually had a folder with everything that is you in it.
A physical folder.
A physical folder, right? No electronic copies of anything. So you get this physical folder, and they're like, which major are you going to? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going to walk around campus till I find one. And they're like, fine, get out. So I go, I don't know, somehow I pick civil engineering. And I walk in the door of civil engineering. I go to the front office. I find it finally because, in town engineering, it's not easy to find where the front office is. And I go to the secretary there. I'm like, hey, I think I want to switch majors. Is there somebody I could talk to about this? And they're like, yeah, Lowell's got some time here. He's not doing anything right now. Why don't you just go on into his office? And I walk into his office, and it's Lowell Grumman, or Greiman. You remember the department chair back in the 90s? I was like, wait a minute. I look on his, as I'm walking in the office, it says department chair. And I was like, serious? And I go in and I start talking to him, and he's like, hey, you want to switch majors, huh? And I was like, yeah. And I'm like, what kind of joke is this, right? Am I getting punked or something? I'm talking to the department chair, and I just walk in. I hadn't even talked to a mechanical engineering professor yet. So I go in there, and I'm talking to him. He's like, well, what do you want to do? And at that time, I was an aspiring Marine officer candidate, and I was wanting to be a Marine. He goes, you know what? We'd love to have you in civil, but I think you'd be better suited in construction engineering. And I'm like, what is construction engineering? That's a thing? He's like, yeah. Oh, yeah. Here, hold on a second. And he grabs the phone, calls up. It was who was the professor in charge back then?
Oh,
you know whom?
Rowings.
Jim Rowings.
Jim Rowings.
Yeah. So he's like, yeah, hey, Jim's up in his office. Go up there and talk to him. And I'm like, okay. And I go up. I'm like, well, this is really weird. I'm talking to actual faculty members that are real professors. And I go up, and on my way up there, I was like, I really don't care what they're teaching. I'm just going to switch. I didn't even care what they were teaching. I'm like, I can talk to real humans, and this is crazy. I'm just staying. Whatever they teach me is fine. So I talked to Rowings. I'm like, okay, you sold me. Construction it is. I had no idea what any of it was. But there, I'm in the construction engineering program.
And so within a decade, what year was that? Because you have a hard time with decades. And
yeah, I have a hard time. That was in the 90s. Okay. That was before I met you. So we're looking at 94, 93 or 94 probably. Okay. 19. I'm just clarifying here. 1993 or 4. Okay. All right. Since I'm having such a hard time with the year. Okay. And then after that, I meet you. All right. Okay, keep going. Now I've interrupted you multiple times.
Yeah. So I graduated, as I tell everybody when I'm talking to them nowadays, just before the turn of the century. Graduated in
I love that
May of 98. And worked for a consulting engineering firm for a couple of years. Got my mechanical engineering license, so got my PE, and then came to Baker Group as a designer, and have been there since just after the turn of the century. 2003 is when I started at Baker Group, so I've been there since 2003. A couple of years as a designer, and then moved into the chair I'm in now. When I was doing design, I always enjoyed existing buildings and energy optimization and figuring out, doing some reverse engineering on the systems that were in those buildings and how do they work and why do they work and how do you fix them. And so that always intrigued me. And so that's the thing that still sharp, keeps my engineering saw sharp now is some of that energy optimization stuff and building studies. And so that's the abbreviated version of the last 20 years for me.
Ooh, highlight on there. Path. You mentioned something important that we talked about on this past Monday that I want you to highlight on. Did everybody hear that Dale said, hey, I got my PE license, and then I switched to a mechanical contractor? Dale, tell us, how important is it to have this alleged PE license?
There are millions of people on this planet that have lived here and passed away without their engineering license, and they lived okay. I've never met anybody that's gotten their engineering license and said, man, I really wish I wouldn't have done that. And so as a Connie, it's because it's an ABET accredited program. As a Connie, you can get your engineering license. And so I strongly encourage anybody that's even maybe thinking about that to do that, because it opens a lot of doors for you depending on your life situation. If you work for a current employer and for some reason, for medical reasons or family reasons or company reasons, you're no longer employed there, or you want to explore other options, having your PE gains you instant credibility with a lot of people in this industry. Again, you don't have to have it unless you're going to be stamping drawings, but having that establishes a lot of credibility, especially if you're in a stack of resumes that there's 50 resumes they're sorting through and 2 or 3 of them have a PE. The employer is probably going to want to at least pause and talk to that person and say, hey, tell me about this. Tell me about your experiences. And so again, anybody that's thinking about it, I strongly recommend it. It's not a walk in the park. It takes some work. But that's something I decided to do. At the time, I was doing a lot of design. That was my core job responsibility was design. So that was an extremely important part of that. Not doing as much design now, but that design experience helps me tremendously in being able to sort through existing building issues and help fix some things that aren't working right in buildings.
All right, and you can help get yourself ready for that by taking that Fundamentals of Engineering exam, right, which every student that's listening to this podcast should do. Whether or not you think you might ever want that PE license, don't sell yourself short. Just take the test at the end of your time here at Iowa State and leave your options open. I mean, you can always take the exam later, but let me just say, the further after graduation you wait to take that exam, the harder it is.
Yeah, you're still, as a student, it's easier to study for that. You almost don't I wouldn't say you don't have to do any studying, but there's not a lot of studying you have to do because you're academically, you retain a lot of that anyway. And so I wouldn't say it's a super easy test, but it's fairly easy for somebody that's cruising through an engineering degree to pass that test. And then it does set you up for the option to get your full-blown engineering license down the road. It's a lot different now than when I got mine. Now you can take the PE exam right away.
Which is so weird. Which is really so weird to me.
Really weird.
I don't even understand this.
A century's worth of engineers that there's this drama about getting the 4 years of experience, sending in the application, taking the test, waiting for results.
Yeah.
Like the whole, 90% of the pressure of that situation is basically just kind of gotten wadded up and thrown away.
Yeah. Yeah. You remember like, okay, so when Dale and
frustrating.
When Dale and I took it, it was you get the results in the mail. And there was no difference between the pass and fail cards. So you get your result in the mail. And let me tell you, you've studied, if you've done it right, after 4 years of practice, you get all the referrals, you do all the stuff to apply just to be able to sit for the exam. You sit and you take the exam, and now you've got to wait for the results to come back. And what's worse is there's probably people that that have taken it, but because it's coming through snail mail, they get it on different days, and people be like, "I got my results.
So
I passed."
True story. When I took mine, took it in the fall. I bought a study packet, started studying just methodically for a couple hours in the morning, July 1st, and just had my calendar of I'm going through these sections during this week, and I'm going to take a sample test, et cetera, et cetera. Had that rhythm. There's a guy I had met a year or two prior. Through some work experience, and he was at the same pace that I was in his engineering career. And so he and I were both taking the mechanical engineering exam in the fall of that year, and we both bought the same study program package. He was in South Dakota.
Yeah.
And so the weekend, like 2 weekends before the test, I went up to his place. We set aside a whole Saturday. He and I did a practice exam, timed, all that kind of stuff. Punchline story is because he was in South Dakota, he almost found out immediately if he passed.
Oh, that's backward.
Thinking South Dakota's way behind.
Yeah.
And so
they only have like 10 letters to send out in South Dakota.
In Iowa, you take the test and then you get the results, but then the state board has to get the list of people that passed, and then they've got to vote on whether, and it's a formality. But I
Right,
didn't
right.
find out. He found out within probably 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh,
I didn't find
man.
out until the middle
Till,
of
like,
December.
yeah.
My wife called. I was at work. Hey, the letter came.
Yeah.
And when I got home, I let it sit on the counter for a while, just staring at it.
Well,
Because at that point in time, I still hadn't failed yet.
Yeah,
And I was
exactly.
like, once I open it and see that I didn't pass it, then I passed through that.
At
gate.
my
So it
firm,
was-
at my firm, there was so much pressure on this exam, right? Because you could not stay at the design firm I was at unless you passed it. All right. And you only got, like, after, if you'd fail it, well, this just didn't happen, right? In the Des Moines office of the firm I was at, no one had failed it in the entire time that branch was open. And God, you just did not want to be the first person to let that happen to. And so, do you remember? Oh, you were at my wife's. My wife had a surprise party for me. Dale Drent was there. That dirtbag. He was okay. So she intercepts it. She sees it, and unlike Dale's wife, who calls him, she opens it and says, "Hey, he passed. That's awesome. Let's have a surprise party for him."
Sounds like Gina.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right, let's have a surprise party for him. And she calls Dale, she calls all sorts of family and
forgot
they're-
about that.
Right? And so we go it was a weekend, we went to something else, and I'm just getting tense because other people are getting theirs and I haven't gotten mine. And I'm like calling my wife at lunch every day, "Hey, is my letter there yet?" Right? "Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked." And I was just like, so and so in the office be like, "Hey, I passed." And I was like, this isn't good.
Interesting.
This isn't good.
The failed letters
The
took
failed,
longer.
yeah, the failed letter. That's what I'm thinking. Yes. I'm like, maybe the failed letters take longer. This would be terrible for me to not pass. So anyway, I walk through the front door of our house. Everyone's like, "Surprise!" And I'm like, I'm literally looking at everybody. I look at Dale like, "What?" He's like, "What?"
The ultimate betrayal.
I'm like,
Yes.
well, first I
Yeah.
didn't get what everybody was excited about. And then I'm like, no. And I look at my wife, I'm like, "What? How long did you know? And how long did all these people know before me?" Oh, man. Yeah, I was okay with it. I mean, it was fun, but man, that was tense.
Have you gotten over the betrayal?
No, I haven't. I'm still feeling
on
it. It
to
still feels right here. Still feels right here.
Fresh wound.
Right?
Fresh.
Still fresh wound that you just opened up there, Dale, when you're talking about getting that letter. All right. So I'm over my trauma, sort of. I've been to therapy for it. I'm okay. All right. Anyway, okay. So anything else you wanted to add? I mean, we need to switch over, let Russ kind of talk about his experience and.
Yeah, I guess thing I'd throw in there. One of the things that I would encourage everybody to do is, as you're trying to figure out your career path, and you're always going to be better if you're connected to a career that you enjoy doing. And so if there's a lot of things you do, and you're young and you're still trying to figure out what I'm on the front end of a 30, 40 year career. How am I going to know when I start that this is my thing? And it takes a lot of people. Sometimes they bounce around a lot.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is people that bounce around a lot and change careers significantly. A lot of those people, they went to college because it's a college their parents told them to go to, and they were pushed into a degree program that they didn't like, but they knuckled down through it because their parents kind of pushed them there. They didn't really want to be there. And then they get into a career they don't like anyway, and they're miserable, and then they find a different job. And so pay attention to the type. So a filter would be, what are some things that I would do at 5 o'clock in the morning, get up at 5 in the morning to do, even if I wasn't paid. Those are the things that you naturally are drawn to and get energy out of, because when you're in your career, it's not if, but when it gets tough, all careers get a little bit messy. You never end up in a job that is only the thing you love doing.
Right, that's why it's a work.
Yeah.
They have to
so
pay you to be there.
Find a career that the core is something that you love, and the other stuff that goes with it, because you love what you're doing, you're able to power through the rest of the stuff. Or when the stuff that you do love gets challenging, you figure out a way to power through. You put in a couple extra hours because you're naturally interested in that career or that topic. And so that's, for me, what I do is stuff that I love doing. I just naturally love doing it. Even before I went to college, I liked figuring out how machines work and how things go together and how this thing affects that thing. And so I'm in a career, fortunately, that's part of what I do. And then as I was doing design, I observed that, hey, for some reason I like going into existing buildings and doing some reverse engineering and figuring stuff out. And so when the opportunity to step in the role I'm in now came up, I thought, yeah, let's do that. So pay attention to the things that you just naturally love doing, and then let that kind of guide your career. And the company that you go to, do some research on various companies. Don't just go to the first company that gives you an offer letter or has the best offer. Get yourself aligned with stuff that you love doing. Just when you wake up in the morning, it's something you just love doing. So I'll just throw that in on the end there.
Well, I think that's good advice. Some of the things that helped me prepare the most for a career of teaching, and I really like engineering. Okay, but I've found that I enjoy teaching more, and some of the things that I did prior to coming here to teach is I did a lot of coaching for my kids. Every sport they were in, I found a way to either coach or help coach. Even sports I knew nothing about. Like, my oldest son picks soccer. Oh, God, soccer. I grew up I was a kid in the 70s and 80s in Iowa, right? Nobody played soccer.
I think I remember in college we would make fun of people that played soccer.
We absolutely
that's
did.
not a real sport.
That's not a real sport, right? But the sports that I liked wasn't really, wrestling, boxing, those things. That wasn't an option for, youth at 4 years old, right? It's like, all right, kid, let's put some gloves on. No, that's not a thing. So he starts doing soccer, and I'm like watching this going, I can do better about this, and I don't even like soccer. So I volunteered to become a soccer coach, and I ended up coaching soccer like 13 years, But what I did find that I really liked is I liked the coaching part. And good teaching, personal opinion, a lot of people will probably disagree with me on this, but good teaching is really a lot like coaching. It's a lot like coaching.
I agree.
Not everybody wants the coaching, but a lot of students do listen to it. And the ones that listen to it are the ones that benefit from it. And actually, that's kind of how this podcast gets started, is because this is not a part that I had to do. This is, time consuming, but it's kind of fun. And it's also like free coaching. If you're in the class, you're getting some extra insight into the industry, into engineering, into legal aspects, and all these things. So it's a lot like coaching. It's like, well, what do I wish I would have known? What would make maybe your career better? Or did you think about this? Or did you think about this? And like when Tom Folis was here on Monday, one of the students, and forgive me,
I asked a little bit about just like what led him to consulting engineering, because Caitlin is already planning on doing it, but I was just wondering like what he had prior to consulting. Yeah.
That's right. She'd already taken an internship with a different consulting firm. But anyway, so he's literally like coaching her. It's like, okay, here, when you're looking for a company, look at this and look at this and look at this. And when you're going for an interview, these are the things that they'll probably ask you, but these are the things you should ask them. And so that's essentially coaching. How do I get started? How do I get a job in the consulting world? How do I get a job in engineering? And is this right for me? And that's all coaching. So you're right. Find things that you really do enjoy, and then they may be able to apply to your work in ways that you never really anticipated. I did not ever anticipate a job coming to teach at Iowa State. I didn't even know it was possible because I didn't have a master's or a PhD at the time. And they're like, well, you got your PE license. We'll call that good enough. I was like, really? Okay. All right. So it was just kind of the way that it started. All right. So here, let's switch gears a little bit, give Russ a chance to talk about how he got into this thing called construction engineering and how he got to know Dale.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. So I came to Iowa State as a mechanical engineer, and I was also a sprinter on the track team. Those were the two things that brought me here. And I was able to, they held a student athlete career fair for us, and, they gave you the list of, just like the engineering career fair, they gave you a list of, what companies are going to be here and what disciplines they're a part of and what majors would be targeted towards them. And Baker Group was there, and they were the only one out of 20 or 30 that was anything close to engineering. At the time, I was a freshman. It's like, all right, I'll go talk to them because I have nobody else to talk to, and I'm getting ready to go home and work at the local coffee shop. Happened to work out that Doug and Tom, who I talked to, they were looking for someone who was a little bit younger, and hey, we got a couple things in Excel that we're trying to work through. This was 2012, so so 12 years ago now, coming up on 13.
That is starting to make you sound. You're transitioning, right? Russ is transitioning from the recent hire, still kind of a student, to the I'm an old graying guy.
Well, I don't feel it. Anna tells me every day how many more grays I have.
You know, more grays, right? So you just decided to shave them all off.
God, on
top.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, that's a good idea. That's why I shaved the side here. Still looks gray though. There's no getting over it. Go ahead.
I got to spend a summer, spring break, hired me on, and got to work over the summer in the engineering department with Joel and Jim, just kind of figure out what is an engineering schedule, what is construction, what is that like. My great-grandpa and grandpa were both in construction, both general contractors back in Chicago suburbs where I'm from, but never really grew up too much around it. My dad did a whole bunch of house projects and enjoyed it, but was curious to see what else there was. I was really happy that I got a job. I was getting paid. I got to stay here for the summer, which is pretty unique. Liked what I did. Didn't love what I did, but really loved the company. Loved Baker Group, and decided to come back the following summer into project management. Worked with a couple of our the mechanical PMs at the time, our plumbing and pipe fitting side, Brandon and Joel, and Doug. Worked with them all summer, and that's what really clicked for me. Is like this is a lot of fun. I really enjoy this. You're out and about more, talking to the field, talking to customers, talking to potential clients, running bids out, and I really enjoyed that portion of it. And at the end of the summer, did that a second summer, and then came back and talked to Doug, and was like, I think this is what I want to do with my career. What can I do on campus to help better prepare myself? And he said, well, have you heard of construction engineering? I said, nope.
Like the rest of us. They're like, that's a thing?
Yeah, I was the end of my sophomore year. I had no idea what it was, but I went up the next day and talked to Larry and switched my major. So it was less than 24 hours after I'd heard about it, I had switched my major to construction engineering mechanical emphasis. Since then, had another internship. I took a co-op, worked in a data center for 9 straight months, and then a couple other semesters, and graduated after 4 internships in a co-op with Baker.
And TAing for me as another job.
I was a grader. I was a TA for Brad.
Yeah.
Took, I think, every single one of Brad's classes.
Yeah, you took a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think you might hold the record for the most because, see here, you took the normal 241, 251, 352, and then the law class, and the lead class in the summer.
Yep. And
the experimental course I taught years ago on ASHRAE 90.1, the energy code.
Yes.
Right? That was.
And then I was a TA for 241, 251.
Yes, that's right. So that's a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of Brad.
Yeah, it is a lot.
Funny story, like probably 2 years before Russ graduated, I thought he was working for us full time. Like it's like he was before, like nowadays athletes get an extra year for COVID. It's like he had like a COVID year or something for internships because
he was there the whole time.
It makes sense now if you had an internship like as a freshman, like back to back and a co-op in there. And I swear, like 2 years before you like when you came on full time, like, oh, I thought he's been full time for like 2 years now.
Yep, a lot of people think that. I got hurt my freshman year, and so I was redshirted, and so I wanted to use my redshirt, all my eligibility, so I just spread out all my classes, and then I changed my major, and I couldn't condense them, and then I was like, all right, well, we're in it for the long haul.
We're in it for the long haul. That's right.
So I just minimized my credit hours but I took on more opportunities at work just to
keep gainfully employed.
Yeah, that was a big deal.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, I guess now I'm curious, like more like Anna and Jaden, how did you guys learn about construction engineering and get in the mechanical side of things here?
So I also started as a mechanical engineer to start. Thank you. And I actually came in undecided first, and then declared mechanical during my second semester of my freshman year because I didn't really want to decide, and they joked that the mechanical engineers are the decided undecided major.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing,
go mechanical, right? Yeah. You can really work on anything, which was true, but then that became really overwhelming that I wouldn't be able to try out all the different career paths and figure out which one I actually liked the most. And then I didn't take an internship after my freshman year. I wanted to go back home and do normal things again with my high school friends. But then all my ME friends, when we came back during my sophomore year, were telling me about their internships. And every single one of my friends I talked to was probably a dozen that were all MEs and took ME internships over the summer. After every single person that would tell me about their internship, I was like, okay, so that was like, what, like the first month? Like, what'd you do like the rest of the time? And they were like, no, like that was it. And I was like, when did you talk to people? Like, was there anybody else at your job? And they were like, my boss, I talked to them most days, but that was kind of it, honestly. Like, I don't really know a lot of the other people in the office, whatever. And then I was stressed out. I was worried that was going to be, I was like, okay, maybe it's just like an intern thing. Maybe that's like why they didn't get to talk to a lot of people, whatever. And so then I talked to, I play on the Ultimate Frisbee club team. And so one of our coaches is a mechanical engineer in practice. And so I was talking to him about this, and he told me about like his day-to-day, a typical day in his life. And I, again, was like, so you do a lot of that stuff in your office alone? When do you see other people? Like, what do you do? And he was like, I don't know. I don't really feel like that's a need. Like, I feel like I can work on my part of it, and then I can come back and talk to everyone about the final product. And if it doesn't work, then we can problem solve as a team and work things out. And I was like, I don't really think I understand. That feels like you're missing a step of the people collaboration during the beginning and during the middle and during the end. You're just coming together after everything's all done. So then I was having a mini early life crisis about my major. Didn't exactly know what to do, but I really like people, and I think I work pretty well with a lot of different people, and so I needed to figure out a way to integrate people into my day-to-day life in my job after graduation. And so then I was talking to one of my teammates on the Ultimate Frisbee team, and she was a construction engineer.
Who?
Claire Holden.
Oh, yeah, Claire, sure.
Yeah, she was a building emphasis. She graduated 4 years ago now.
Yeah, it's been a while.
She was a senior when I was a freshman, so 4 years ago. But yeah, so she was like, it sounds like all of the issues you have would be solved if you just went into construction. And she tried to convince me that when I was an undecided engineer my freshman year. And so I kind of thought it was just her sales pitch and everything. But then the more people I talked to, I went and talked to an advisor in the advising center, and they were like, if you do the mechanical emphasis option, then your credits will transfer over a little bit better. You might not have to stay here any extra amount of time. Like, we might be able to work things out for you. And our department is a lot smaller. You get to a lot smaller than the ME department. You get to talk to a lot more people. You get to know a lot more people too. Like, there's a higher probability that you'll know a lot of people you take classes with, that you'll know people in the industry, that everything about construction that you've always said is really true, and that it's small, but it's nicely small. It's big enough that you can grow in and move around in, but small enough that there's usually a familiar face. One
of the first semesters I was here teaching, one of the female Connie students invited me to her sorority. It was a professor appreciation dinner. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I went to I think it was the Tridelt house. Okay, it's been a long time. But anyway, so I go there. It's very, they had a very formal dinner. You sit down. You've got, basically, it's just the girls of the house that had a professor show up, sitting around the table with a house mom and everything, and they go through and they introduce them. And then, so she introduces me. She's like, "Hey, this is Brad Perkins, my professor in Connie 220 or 241, and and he's also my advisor." And anyway, it was nice of him to show up. And one of the other, I think it was a mechanical engineer. She goes, her head just snaps around. She's like, "Wait a minute, your professor is also your advisor?" She looks at her like, and this is before we had a separate advising office. We we were smaller. The faculty did the advising. There was like one Connie advisor, and everyone else had, like 20 or 30 advisees. And she's like, "Yeah, and your advisor knows who you are." She's like, "Yeah, and teaches you a class." She's like, "Yes, and he showed up tonight." And she's like, she's ticked. She's like, "My advisor wouldn't even know who I was if he ran over me in his car, and I don't know any of the professors well enough to even ask this." she was kind of pissed.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite a difference. It was quite a difference because she had come straight into Connie for, I think her dad was a contractor. And anyway, just very different experience is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but even so when you change your major, you have to have a meeting with your old advisor before they'll let you actually change your major.
That's funny because they just gave me my folder and said, get out.
Right. When they have it all digital, that they can keep a little bit better track,
Hey,
I
she's
guess.
digital. They're like, whatever, get out. Loser.
But so during that meeting, my ME advisor also probably couldn't have really told you who I was, but I had met with her a couple times, and you have to write why you're meeting with them.
Were they still using the number pull thing?
No.
Probably not? Okay.
No, yeah.
All right,
This
all right,
was
that's
in
good.
this century, so don't worry.
graduated.
Ouch, that
Smart
hurts.
tablets.
Ow. That's not nice at all. Guess what? She doesn't have a final grade yet in 380.
Dang it.
Did you know that extra credit can be negative?
What?
Yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true.
But during this meeting, we were talking about it, and she asked why I wanted to be in construction, and I basically said the people thing, that whole spiel, and then she was like, be honest, is it because it's smaller too? And I was like, honestly, that wasn't a reason I had thought about at the time, but then I was like, honestly, yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
I know, I've planned to take some of these classes in the ME department with my friends, but other than that, there's everyone kind of is to themselves and kind of just hangs out with the people that they already know, and there's not a lot of interaction between professor and student that you don't already know. So,
hey, Kaylee, you're free to jump in here and dispute any of this. All of us breaking on the ME department.
I feel like I'm kind of outnumbered here. I don't know.
Kaylee's like, I didn't realize that's how this thing was gonna go. Right? Do you want to dispute this? I mean, Kaylee's like, no. Let me tell you how it is. Right?
I mean, it's not all bad. I definitely agree. I feel like the first 2 years of mechanical engineering is definitely the most overwhelming and huge. But I feel like as I've gotten to junior, senior year, there are a lot of similarities to the Connie department in that way. I think it's more manageable and more personal. But yeah, I don't know. Mechanical engineering was my choice. I always liked the robotics type of thing, when I was in high school and that type of vibe. And so mechanical seemed to make the most sense for me at that time.
Thank you. You know what? That's what we're here. We're not here to bash her major. Okay?
I'm
just
sorry,
okay.
Kaylee.
It's okay. I get it.
It's however though, Kaylee, if you did want
It just happened.
if you did want to switch majors, we would love to have you in Connie. Right? It's not too late.
That would set me back a little bit too much.
Well, listen to Russ. You could go on the extended plan like Russ.
I am curious though, if you would, I guess, highlight it a little bit. You talk a lot about the mechanical emphasis for construction. What does that, I guess, look like, or what's the comparison to that and regular mechanical engineering?
Here, let me tackle that one, because think you take a lot of the same classes like fluids and thermodynamics and all the calculus and physics and all that stuff is exactly the same. You know how, Kaylee, you might take a class on machine part design or internal combustion engines, okay?
Yeah.
Think your electives are already fixed for you. In other words, you have to take a class on HVAC design. You have to take multiples, because not only do you have to take the one I teach, but our mechanical emphasis students also have to take ME 441 and ME 442. They have to take the ME class on heat and mass transfer. They have to take thermodynamics. So basically, you don't have electives because they're already chosen for you, and our department chose all the ones that pertain to mechanical building systems. So there's absolutely no point in us taking a class on internal combustion engines because we're not interested. But you could, right? There's no class, there's no elective for them to take on machine part design to design transmissions and stuff, because that's not a thing for buildings. But you, Kaylee, can. You see the difference? Now,
yeah, that helps.
We swap out a couple of other classes because they also have to take classes on things like estimating and scheduling and fundamentals of building construction. So there's a few classes that we swap some more ME classes for, if that makes sense. Okay? Now, Kaylee, you would probably have, you're interested in a job in manufacturing. Is that what you said?
Yeah, that's kind of what I have the most
Okay.
experience in right now, and
See,
kind of where I'm comfortable. So yeah.
and that probably would not be a great fit for one of our construction engineering students. All right. Now, I'm going to caveat that. If you wanted to talk about building those buildings and building those systems and stuff, hey, Connie's student is the right person to get. But when it comes to like setting up industrial processes and manufacturing processes and working at like at a John Deere or trying to think of, across town where they do hydraulics. What's it?
Dan Foss?
Yeah, Dan
And
Foss.
Foss.
Yeah. So that would not be companies that would probably look at hiring our graduates, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. But if you're thinking of, hey, HVAC design or HVAC systems or something, ours is probably a little bit better fit. Okay. But if you're looking to go to manufacturing, Kaylee, you are in the right place. So there you are. Especially if you've gotten past that first stuff. And that is probably where, but in here, we've been like kind of teasing the ME department a little bit because almost all of us have that in common. But what I will say is all majors go through this sifting where a student is like, maybe this really isn't the thing. And we lose construction engineering students that get to like about 241 and they're like, this is not my thing. Just not my thing. And that's fine. That is an awesome thing to learn as soon as you can, is that what I'm doing maybe isn't the best fit for me and I need to go find something else that is. And if that's what you learn in a 200 level class, that's usually when it happens, is that first or second year, you get into it a little bit and you're like, maybe this isn't for me. That's a great thing to learn from one of those classes, is that I need to find something else. Kaylee, did you start as an ME?
Yeah, I've been ME from day one.
See, that's actually kind of rare for a student to stick with one major and not switch majors at least once. Okay, so Kaylee,
Yeah,
good
for
job.
sure. Thank you.
And yet it's still not too late to switch.
That's true. If I want to be here longer, delay real life for a while longer, I can just change.
You can. That is an option.
Kayla, do you have any specific questions for those of us around the table currently as it relates to career advice or thoughts about how to find a good employer? Do you have any, rather than us just kind of rambling and maybe gathering some nuggets out of what we say, is if there's a question that you have that we can specifically try and answer, that's better than us just rambling.
I mean, it's good rambling. I don't know. I guess if you wanted to talk more about like what your guys' company specifically, I guess, works on. I guess you guys kind of highlighted some of that, but I mean, what kinds of projects like you work on? I guess obviously like construction, but more into that since that's not really my realm. And then also like when you guys are like interviewing people or like looking for employers, like what are some of the characteristics, I guess, or things that you might kind of look for? I guess it's hard to answer when it's a long list, but some of the short bullet points, like what would be the look for?
That's a great question. I'll skim real quick because I think your second question, we should probably spend more time on your second question maybe than your first one. So Baker Group, we do basically mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems in buildings. And then as the service side of our business, we have people to help maintain the systems that we install. So if a building owner builds a brand new campus of buildings and they don't have facilities people to operate those buildings, understand the complexity of the systems and how to keep them running properly, we have employees that we can work with that building owner to send those employees either be based at the building location or periodically, quarterly, go and do routine maintenance on those systems that we install. So that's really the punchline for Baker Group. And geographically, most of the what we're doing is in the Midwest. As construction technology changes and the construction industry shifts more towards prefabrication, we've gotten involved in building stuff in central Iowa, dropping it on a semi and sending it to Louisiana, for instance, to be bolted together on site. So that's the direction the construction industry is going, ultimately to speed up the construction of a building. If a business owner decides on Monday that they need to build a new building. If they could, they would move into it on Tuesday, because then they can start being profitable, but they have to endure this messy, expensive, risky process called construction. So companies that will survive in construction are companies that are going to continue to figure out how to push technology to speed up getting the building built. And that's true. That stands the test of time. So there's technologies that we use today that we didn't use back before the turn of the century because they just didn't exist. 3D collision software and all that kind of stuff are technologies that we use today to speed up construction process. And so that's really the punchline of Baker Group in our industry. But your question on interviewing and things to do or not do, it's probably easier for me to identify things that when I'm interviewing somebody that causes me to lose interest entirely. And that is if they show up and they haven't done any prep work whatsoever. I was interviewing a couple people actually earlier this week for a project management position. They didn't show up with anything. They just came into the room. They didn't have a list of notes, a list of questions. Conversation was good, and they were intelligent, smart people. But to me, that showed me that they didn't really do any prep into understanding what the role was, or if we talked about something that was really important, they were going to rely on their memory to remember what that was, as opposed to being able to jot it down. And if I'm going to send that person to a client or to a meeting, and they're not going to bring anything to take notes or capture the conversation, my trust in hiring that person for that job as a project manager goes down significantly. So if you're going to an interview, do research on regardless of the industry. So this is universally true. If you're a marketing student and you go to a marketing firm because you're interviewing for a job that they have, research the company that you're interviewing with, and then the position that they have open. Find as much as you can about that position. Things that exist today that didn't exist when Brad and I were graduating, or this thing called the World Wide Web.
Yeah, that's a fairly new thing. Hey, wait. Dale and I were some of the first students to get email address. Remember that? Yeah.
Electronic mail.
Electronic mail. The electronic mail. I was the original B. Perkins at Iowa State, and Dale Drent was the original DJ Drent at Iowa State.
True story.
Yeah, true story, man.
True story.
No numbers, no nothing.
Yeah. So
how long did it take to send an email back in the day?
Well, it took a while for the pigeon to get there and back. I mean, it's not instant or anything.
Let's not ruin a good story with the details.
Stone tablets take a long time to carry places.
Well, no, the part that did take a long time is you'd send an email, but they may not check their email for a week or a month.
Nobody got it.
Nobody used it. I mean, we had it, but nobody used it, right? You checked it.
The squawk of the dial-up and
exactly.
It took a while to connect.
Took a while.
The buddy was on, so you had to wait for him. But
oh yeah, it was terrible. So you'd send an email. They might check it that week, maybe not. Maybe next week, maybe not. Yeah. So it could take a couple of months to get a response on an email.
Electronic mail was your backup plan. Primary was you called them with a phone call and
no, actually, I'd say electronic mail was your third option. I called them. I stopped by their office or their house, and then maybe I'd send them an email. But I was desperate at that point.
So do research on the company, do research on the role that you're interviewing for. And then if the role that they have posted isn't your ideal role, find out if they have a role that is your ideal role. And even that gets you an opportunity to be at the table with them and gives you a chance to tell them what your qualifications are. And if they have a posting for role A, but you're really interested in role B, you help them understand how you can help them be successful in role B and start connecting those dots for them instead of assuming they're just going to talk to you and be completely amazed with how great you are and they're going to want to just have you come on their team. If you're not connecting the dots for them on how your qualifications help them be successful at their thing, whatever their thing is, then you're missing the mark. If you show up and on your resume you say that you want to go to work at a place that can help you get better and help you increase your skills, don't take this wrong when I say they don't give a crap about you improving yourself. Their goal is to bring somebody on their team that's going to help them as a company be more successful at doing their thing. And so every business is a people business. And if you have smart people, you can do good things. If you don't have smart people, you're not going to accomplish great things. So helping them understand how your background and experiences can help them be successful in the opening that they have posted. So that's some universal advice that stands the test of time and is universal regardless of the industry.
And I'd add on to that too, knowing what you want to do. You know, position A is posted, you really want position B. I spend quite a bit of time interviewing new employees and potential interns, and you know, hey, what about this job interests you? I just want a job. Okay, well that doesn't really help me. Like I'd like to see, is this the best fit for you? Maybe there's another spot that you'd be best suited for. So trying to help us find, you know, we talk a lot at Baker, right person, right seat. You know, we want to get the right people in the door and find where they will thrive, so they will thrive personally, and which will in turn help our own business grow.
Does that make sense? Checking in.
Yeah, that's really good info. Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, we haven't let Jaden talk yet. Are we going to let him talk?
No.
No?
It's a risky.
It is a risky.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Roll the dice.
all right.
Okay,
Jaden, you
let's
got
do
2
it.
seconds.
2 seconds.
I'm
all
just
right.
kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. My name is Jaden Dublin. I'm a senior going into my last semester in construction engineering, which is kind of weird to say. Like most of you guys, I started in the mechanical engineering department. Did 2 or 3 semesters in mechanical engineering, and kind of what got me into the mechanical engineering is I wanted to design golf clubs. And in high school, I liked the idea of wrapping my head around something and designing it. So went the ME route to conquer that, and also had a passion for like the business and people and sales, and kind of after 2 semesters, I talked to some of my friends who were in the county department, and they were doing a lab for your 241 class. I think they were doing the excavation lab, and I went in. I was kind of watching them use the scales and doing what they were doing, and they were giving me the rundown on what the county department's about, and I decided I wanted to switch. So that kind of got me in the county department, and I started off as a building emphasis, and after taking Brad's classes, 241, 251, 352, he kind of talked me into doing mechanical emphasis. I was one of the students that folded and said, all right, Brad, you're right.
Peer pressure works. Peer pressure works.
Yeah, and so Brad was part of that decision, but also I didn't like the idea of like, okay, if I'm going into a career, I don't want to limit myself. You know, I want to be able to have this knowledge and be on the same level of knowledge in building construction, but also have this additive of mechanical and what that looks like. So I ended up making the switch to mechanical emphasis, and I took fundamentals of HVAC last semester, which is a ME 441, I think.
Yep.
And taking the capstone next semester, ME 442, to do HVAC design. I've just been involved in the mechanical emphasis and the mechanical industry a little bit. I interned for Baker Group this last summer underneath Dale and learned a lot and applied a lot of my knowledge that Brad has taught me in 352, and just added to it, and also the president of Mechanical Contractors Association at Iowa State. So Brad mentioned talking about the convention and future episodes, so looking forward to talking about that and what that looks like. And
yeah, we need to take pictures.
yeah.
Well, Russ is like, maybe not, maybe not. Right, Russ has been in a few of the conventions, so it's a good time. It's a good time. All right, but yeah, we'll be back for a podcast for that. That's for sure. Okay. All right. Hold on a second. Vivian, you've been pretty quiet so far. Did you want to weigh in here at all?
I was trying to think of a good. Okay, one thing I wonder is, does anyone actually start in the construction mechanical emphasis? Because it feels like everyone's switching from mechanical engineering.
It's the campus's best kept secret.
It is. That's a good question. Does anybody actually start in it? I'm sure it's happened. Yeah, students are like, I don't know, none of my friends, and not me.
I graduated with 5 other mechanical emphases, and none of them started
As a mechanical emphasis,
as a Connie or a mechanical
as a Connie,
emphasis.
even,
They
yeah,
switched.
that's true. Okay, hold on. There occasionally there is, Vivian, but usually it's probably somebody that knew about it ahead of time from a friend, a mentor, a parent, something. Like Dan, for example, Dan Kellen, our outgoing president for MCA student chapter. He did, but only because I taught a class at DMAC for it was for engineering and architects. I co-taught
For high school students.
Yeah, for high school students. So he had heard about it beforehand and ended up being, coming in as a Connie. So once again, you probably had knowledge. Now, Jenny Baker does a pretty good job at recruiting. So I know we have some come in that start, but it's a good question, Vivian. How many people start as a Connie? You got to understand though, high school guidance counselors literally don't think past. Engineering for them is only divided into either electrical or mechanical engineering. That is the entire high school guidance counselor code book, if you will. Oh, you want to be an engineer? Okay. Do you like electricity or steel? Steel. Mechanical. Awesome. Electricity? Electrical. There you are. You're an engineer, and for them, the important thing is just get them to a program that has those two options. So I understand why. It's just not a traditionally well-populated major. Heck, not that many engineering schools even have a true construction engineering program. I would say, one thing, Vivian, a very similar program that other schools would have more of would be architectural engineering.
Those schools don't have a Brad Perkins to bully people into being a mechanical emphasis.
Bully. Ow.
Encourage. You're right. Encourage.
Bully. That is so, oh my gosh.
Gracefully encourage.
Right. That A you were getting in 380 is now, it was a B. Now we're looking at C. Maybe
It's
C.
a free fall.
It's in free fall. It's absolutely in free fall. Negative 30 points on your extra credit.
Negative 30.
Hey, negative numbers are real numbers. It can happen. All right. Bully. So I am enlightening you in your other job opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Vivian, are you thinking of switching to Connie?
Not particularly.
Oh, we're hurt. We are so hurt.
And I feel like that sounds like the wrong answer considering.
Yeah, that's okay. All right.
everyone
What
else
were you, Emmy? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought so.
yeah.
Okay. All right. What year?
I'm a sophomore.
Oh,
Perfect
time to
time.
change, right? She's been listening, right?
She's learned anything
She's
from
learned
today.
anything.
Right.
She's learned anything from this discussion. This is the right time, right? You need to get together with Anna. She'll talk you through, why it's a good move and all these things.
As long as you don't study abroad, you don't have to add in any extra semesters at all.
There you are.
So.
All right. Just saying.
Okay, Vivian, you don't have to do it.
Thank you.
There's probably a podcast that somebody from the mechanical engineering department is putting on that's giving career advice that you can tune into.
Yeah, that's right.
Surely,
That's right.
surely they're doing.
I'm sure it
something-
happens.
Something like this.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah, they're in the bottom of black engineering doing it right now as we speak.
If they even have service down there.
If they probably don't. All right.
There isn't service.
Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't know. I've only been in black engineering once.
Ooh.
Just wait.
I've only been in there like one time.
Yeah. Okay. Now, nobody joins Connie for the great building that we're in.
It's true.
I mean, usually town engineering and black engineering have a competition for the worst building on campus. It's neck and neck. So it's not because of the building people switch. Okay. So don't think that, Vivian. It's not because of the buildings. All right. All right. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So one thing I did want to talk about a little bit is kind of how mechanical construction and the department and just the world in general has definitely changed from when Dale and I went to the job market. The job market was very different. Now, one thing that is consistent as mechanical emphasis, we had more, I don't know, Dale, I don't know if your experience was the same, but I think I had a few more job opportunities than my peers did that were like a building emphasis, for example. I think I had 3 or 4 different companies offering me jobs, and getting that many was shocking at 97. It was not near as aggressive with regards to recruiting as it is today.
Yeah, and that's one piece of advice if I'm talking to a group of Connies who are undeclared or undecided, is even if you think you're going to be a building emphasis, or if you think you're going to work for a general contractor at the end of your academic career, or the beginning of your career in life, I encourage them to take a heavy consideration for the mechanical emphasis, mechanical or electrical, because as a general contractor, your biggest risks on a project are mechanical and electrical subcontractors. So if you show up and you have a resume and you're meeting with the general contractor, or the general contractor has a stack of resumes they're looking through, and they see your resume and they see that you have a mechanical emphasis, they're gonna probably say, hey, I want to at least talk to this person because I don't have anybody on my staff that knows anything about mechanical. So it opens a door. It's similar to having your mechanical engineering license. There's doors that it'll open for you that, if in the noise of all the other resumes that they're looking at, gives them at least a reason to talk to you. And then from there, it's up to you to show up and be competent and confident and know your stuff. But it gets you a lot more opportunities than just a traditional Connie building emphasis, especially if you're in a tight labor market. And when you start your freshman, sophomore year, you have even if the job market is strong and 100% employment of Connie graduates, the economy that you have absolutely no control over may go from hiring everybody that it possibly can to, hey, we're not hiring anybody because we've overhired and we're laying people off. So always think less about your academic path and what's the easiest classes I'm going to take. And guilty as charged, as a student, you're looking at, hey, what are the courses I can sign up for that I'm going to get an easy A? Because I'm worried about my GPA. I want to keep that, and that's fine. But think less. I encourage you to think less about your academic path and think more about, all right, my academic career is over, and now I'm going to go and get a job. What do I need to do during my academic time, whether it's easy or difficult, to make me stand out from the other applicants or the other resumes that are laying on a table? And having a mechanical emphasis on your resume helps you stand out from the noise of all the other Connie students if you're laying on the table of a general contractor.
Dale, are you saying that having a mechanical emphasis actually increases your job possibility?
That'd be a great way to
No
summarize.
way. I'll be darned. Anna, you've probably never heard this before, have you?
This is brand new information.
Brand new information.
Yeah.
Jaden, I'm sure you haven't either in any of my classes. And in interest of full disclosure, I did not pay him to say that. Okay, but it is true. All right, now, and that is one thing that has changed, though, from 97 to today, is that there were not that many job opportunities then, and it was a different market. And I know having the mechanical emphasis definitely helped. It was definite big help. You know, because today, if you look at recruiting, I mean, Russ, you just went out to our Great Futures Forum, which is, with Jaden. We go out there, and man, the recruiting for our students is intense. Companies from all over the country that are there trying to hire the students, and all the ones I took, they're like, yeah, we already got a job. Good Lord, there was one incident there. So we're going down in an elevator, and someone happened to mention Reno. Remember this, Jaden?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, we were just talking about Reno. I think it was the ASC competition was in Reno. Well, there was a contractor in the elevator that heard the word Reno, and he comes up to me. He's like, hey, one of your students is wanting to go to Reno. Do you know who it is? Because we got offices in Reno, and we need people there. Can we hire, we need to talk to them. And I'm like, they did? Okay. Like, are you sure it was mine? Yeah, they were in Iowa State and whole thing. And turns out they were just talking about the ASC competition being in Reno. They weren't looking to get a job in Reno, but that was all they needed to go on a mad, frantic search for the student. My point is that there is opportunity like there hasn't ever been. All right, and definitely, Russ, it was probably a lot more today than when you graduated.
Yeah, I graduated eight years ago, 2016.
Yeah.
And there were a good amount of opportunities, but even today there's a lot more, stuff that, companies are trying to get connected with contractors they like, and then take them outside of their typical geographical reach. And so it allows opportunities for, hey, someone's like, well, I really want to travel. I really want to go to the California, the coast. I really want to be in Montana. Whatever it might be, that there's more opportunities even at your local contractor, because they might be expanding to those areas or serving a client that could open some extra doors for you.
Well, here I definitely want to open up a little again. Anna, Jaden, do you guys have questions? Stuff that you want to talk about with regards to job opportunities, recruiting? Because you can always get the same story from me. You know that, right? But we got, and this is for those of you that are online as well. This is your chance to ask a couple contractors, alumni, their opinion, other than just mine that you get all the time anyway. So. Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So Russ, you just mentioned traveling, which is something that I'm interested in, like in the future. I don't necessarily know when or where or how long, but when do you think is an appropriate time to bring up the fact that you like want to travel, like with an employer? Like, is that an intern, or is that like an interview question or a post-hiring question? Like, what's the timeline?
As soon as possible. If you have an interest, bring it up, because you don't know what other projects or something they might looking at. It wasn't a traveling opportunity, but we were awarded a data center and needed someone on site full time, and might have had one co-op in the company's history previously. And so that was an opportunity, like, hey, is that something you want to do? You want to take off of school? Sure. Yeah, let's try that.
I think
bringing it up early. And
I think early. Yeah, because now here, let me just give you an example. Like when I graduated, I went to the same large design firm as one of my friends from Ankeny, but we both had very different things that we wanted to do. I had just gotten married. I'd been in the military. I didn't want to move around. And I ended up being in the Kansas City office every day. He, on the other hand, was all about, he was a photographer. He was single. And he was like, man, I want to travel. Well, they put him on job site construction management type of stuff. And he went to Thailand. He went worldwide. But you need to bring that up early, and find out if that's something, because usually if you're wanting to travel, at least what I've seen is usually you can probably worm that into a job that probably pays a lot more.
Okay.
All right. Like we just had, one of my former TAs graduates and he takes a job, and it's traveling. I wouldn't call, it was some oil field in Oklahoma to build, whatever it was. I wouldn't call that exotic places, but good grief. What they paid him around, I think everything in, he was getting almost $100,000 as a new grad.
Wow.
I know. I was like, crap. He's like one raise away from outdoing me here at Iowa State, and it's like, so what I'm saying is that is something that if that's something you truly want, early,
Okay.
and you need to go look, and it might take a little more research on the companies that you're looking to talk to. Okay, but that's something that could be very beneficial to you and help you stand out. And if a company is looking for that, you're going to get their attention. All right, so I would early. That's not something after you hire to bring up.
And I'd say stand out one way or the other. Like, we don't really send people out to travel, so you might not be the right fit, which is beneficial
Good
for
to know,
both of
too.
them.
That is good to know too.
Yeah,
That
so
is,
you're not putting yourself in a place you don't
I would
want to
add,
be.
maybe or basically letting them know that you're willing to travel. That way, if they don't have a position that is a traveler, if you announce they want to travel, they may shy away from you saying, "Hey, this person, when they introduce themselves, part of their who I am is I want to travel," as opposed, which is different than
I'm
willing to travel,
yeah.
or I'm open to travel. And so maybe even before you say your name, you say that you're open to travel.
Okay.
like I said early.
Hey,
That's an early
what's
thing.
We talked to her. She's willing to travel. I didn't catch your name though.
I didn't
And
get-
so
yeah.
they remember as much as they remember your name. They remember that you're interested or willing or open to travel. So
Okay.
Earlier the better.
Okay.
I thought of a question that the general class might ask. How do you go about negotiating salary, and what does that look like? And how is it received as a hiring manager?
I'll take a crack at that. I would say understand where the market is for what you're have it pretty dialed in, into a range as opposed to a specific number, because it depends on the company and how desperate they are to need to hire somebody and how well your experiences match up to what the position is that they have. And then also and then also part of that discussion, as important as what is my offer letter going to say on day one? What is my 5-year path? Assuming that I'm competent and I pick up things maybe a little quicker than the average Joe. What is a 5-year career? Financially, the first 5 years. What does this role look like? So I would combination of not only just don't lose track of the starting salary, but also just as important, don't lose track of a piece of your conversation being, what does the first 4 to 5 years look like?
Well, one thing that I would throw out there is you got to do your research and know what you're worth and know what the market's paying. As the way I explain it to students, the seniors, it's like when it gets to salary discussions, you're probably not talking to, maybe the person you interviewed with. Now you're in the world of HR.
Potentially.
Potentially. And the bigger the company is, the more this is true. You go to a Baker Group is different from, say, a Black & Veatch, or a Burns & McDonnell. We're talking about worldwide companies. They've got numbers they've got to get in, and they've got human resources people, and they're doing their homework. And what I'm saying by their homework is okay, out of this particular institution, whether I'm talking about Iowa State, Kansas State, Purdue, whatever, Iowa State keeps statistics on every major by major, and it gives you outcomes. What is the range? What's the salary range? What's the average? What's the high and what's the low? And all of you as students can look this up, and you damn sure should. So that when you get an offer, you're like, okay, is this fair? Is this high? Is this low? Where are we at? Not just, well, what do I feel like? Because your feelings, we're engineers. Your feelings are for things after hours. Salary is dollars and cents, and that's numbers. And numbers we can analyze. And what I'm saying is, first thing you do is you go and you find out what is the range of salaries in my major. Notice that range that you're going to look up is all locations. It doesn't tell you which one was in, Leon, Iowa, and which one was in San Francisco. So you got to understand there's within that range, there's some variance just based on location. All right. That being said, if we're looking at averages and we're like, hey, this company is offering me a job and it's August and it's the end of my internship and I'm about to go back for my last year at Iowa State and they offered me this amount and that amount is below the average for my major. I'm not feeling it, but maybe you got offered that in April and you're graduating in May. Different time frame.
Different feeling. Different
feeling. So what I'm saying is that if you're getting an offer, and I always tell students this, don't take below average offers before you even get to the career fair. Don't do that.
Yep.
Don't do that. And then like let's say Anna brings a job offer to me, which we talked about this on Monday. You absolutely should get somebody that you respect to look at it. Could be a faculty member, could be a parent, could be, whoever it is. Get a second set of eyes on this. That number is not confidential. All right? It's not. You're free to talk about that with whoever you trust. So you go get some input, especially people with experience. Next, analyze that number. All right, on the scale of as I look at all my other peers, do I feel like I'm an above average or below average student? What are the things, how could I justify getting an above average dollar amount? Or how could I understand if maybe I'm getting a below average dollar amount? What's going on? What time of year? What is the company? What do I think? My honest assessment of where I fall in with my peers. You need to be able to be honest with yourself doing this, okay? So then you look at, are there any other things that I need to take into account? I would say things like, well, what's their vacation plan? What's their health plan? Those are things that are hard to understand if you've never had a health plan. But I see things like where students, you know, like one company might say, hey, you get a company truck and we'll pay for your cell phone. Those are real expenses that you're like, okay, now maybe that's why they're paying me just a little below average, is that I'm getting the company truck and the company cell phone, and instead of a week of vacation, I'm getting 2 weeks of vacation or 3 weeks of vacation. You don't know. You need to look at the whole thing, not just the dollar amount.
And I'd say too, when you're preparing, getting ready for those conversations, one, be prepared, just like it's been discussed. But two, don't be afraid to negotiate.
Yes, don't be afraid to negotiate.
If I'm looking to work for Dale, Dale gives me an offer and I just accept it. In the back of Dale's head, he's probably thinking, oh, if he doesn't even stand up for himself for negotiating, is he going to stand up for us as in a company?
Exactly.
During a change order or a contract negotiation.
Yep.
Is he just going to roll over and just take the first offer that's accepted? So it benefits you in more ways than one to have those conversations and see what
absolutely
makes sense.
And here, if you go to a company and they offer you something, you're like, wow, I think I'm not quite sure that feels right. That feels a little low. And you go back and try to negotiate, and they get upset, and they get, you didn't want to work there anyway. Okay, you don't. It's this business. This is not personal. If you're saying, hey, Dale, you know what? Here's kind of what I'm thinking, because when you're leaving college, odds are, I'm just going to play the averages, most of you are not leaving debt-free. Some of you do. That is amazing and awesome. Okay, we've been on the Jaden Dublin scholarship tour here in MCA the last couple of years, making sure he doesn't leave with any. But not everybody's going to be like that. All right? You've got real expenses. And I don't know if you've noticed out there, but cost of living has been going up a little bit. There's this little thing about inflation. Point is that work is an exchange of your time for money. Make it equitable. Understand the financial obligations that you have, and it might not just be you. At some point, maybe you want a family. And you need to consider everything like benefits for them and salary. And is this really an equitable exchange of time for money? And if an employer gets insulted because you've expressed a desire to negotiate, think hard about what that is. And I know this is going to sound odd, but Dale and I might know an employer that lies to you before you go work there. We won't say who.
I know when I graduated, the six mechanical, me and the other five mechanical embassies, we all shared our offers and helped each other out.
That's awesome.
Different areas or different contracts, just to see what is that range and what does that look like. It's trusted people, and we've known each other for years, so it helped us all in the long run.
And I think that's a solid thing to do.
You can only negotiate your starting salary once.
Yes.
Yeah, and something that we started doing a couple of years ago as a company, as a result of, there's a bunch of data centers in central Iowa area, and we had some of our people, let's say, air quotes around, got poached to go work for the data center, which is fine. If it's a better fit and you can make more money and it's a better path, that's, hey, that's great. No hard feelings. But the problem was the offer letters that they were getting was the company would quantify the total package, which is a combination of wage and benefits, and if there's a cell phone allowance or a vehicle allowance, or what's the value of vacation, and which is all good and well. So they would total it at the bottom of the page, and that's fine. We weren't doing that because we hadn't been in that situation before, but we started doing that because we had some of the people that left to go work for the data center called us back within a month of when they started and said, hey, can you help me understand this? Because they were assuming that they were comparing the total value of the package at the bottom of the page compared to their wage that they were making at Baker Group, and there was a huge gap, and so we had to walk them through, and they ended up figuring out that their wage
actually went down.
Their wage actually went down because we weren't doing hey, here's the total package. Because when you, as an employer, if you're a lot of times health benefits and all that kind of stuff. Healthcare insurance is very expensive.
Yeah.
And so you never, as an employee, a lot of times you don't see that and you don't even know it.
Right.
And so we've started to
and for these students, it is going to be very difficult for them to look at the company health package and have any idea what's a good one and what's a bad one and what's a mediocre one.
Yeah.
You know, that is tough.
And if you don't have anything else to go on and you're trying to do a spitwad total cost of employment, typically an employer's package is basically the total cost of employment is your base wage times like 1.25 or 1.3 is the total cost. Once you roll all the benefits together, it's somewhere around 25 to 30% of your
I
wage.
bet it's at least 30%.
So if your wage is, for the sake of the conversation, is $100,000, your total cost once you roll in the benefits is 125 to 130 grand is what your total cost of employment is. So we started putting together a sheet that did summarize all that stuff because the offer letters that some of our employees were getting, that's the format that was in, and they were thinking they were apples to apples, but it was
apples to oranges.
apples to pizza.
Yeah.
Not even fruit.
Not even fruit. That's right.
So if and when you get an offer letter, see if it's in the format of some sort of value of the total package. And if it isn't, if you can ask them if they have a sheet like that.
Yeah, break it out.
If there isn't, then kind of create your own spreadsheet, the major line items and do a best guess on the value of some of the benefits that they have so that you can, if you have multiple offer letters that you're comparing, or you're just comparing yourself against what you think the market is, you're really rolling in all the total cost or the total package that they're offering.
All right. Well, thank you, Dale. Hey, Will, are you there? Because we need to be fair with him and give him some time for his case study. You know?
You're all right. The conversation's been really good. I've been learning a lot.
Well, good. See, that's the whole point of these, right? Is to learn the stuff and have the discussions that you just don't have time for in regular class. All right, but we do have a regular class. What's that, Will?
Definitely had a lot of questions answered about offer letters and negotiating and that kind of stuff in the industry.
Good. Hey, Will, you want to hit your camera? I still got the Will Edwards up on, or is that not working?
Yeah, I can get it pulled up. It just takes a long time on this laptop for some reason.
Okay.
It wants to be
difficult. All right. I mean, unless you're ice fishing. But
no,
there he is. Now I see Will.
Kind of this giant window behind me, but
that's all right. Well, at least we can, or I can see on here. All right. Will, if you want to go ahead and hit us with your case study. Who's the people? What's the issue? And what happened?
Perfect. So I decided to do my case brief over a incident that happened more recently and something that more of you guys might know about and be aware of in the current public image. So I decided to do mine over the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in, I think, of March 2024, I think it was. It got a lot of headlines, a lot of national news coverage. It was a big deal. I saw it and I thought that was really interesting. So what ended up happening was about in Baltimore, Maryland, in the very early hours of sometime in March, I believe it was, a giant cargo ship filled with containers called the Dali left the port of Baltimore heading towards Sri Lanka. I believe it's some country in Asia, I want to say. But so it was leaving the port, and while navigating through the channel called the Fort McHenry Channel, it lost power of some kind. That's what they say now. But
well, you're starting to sound like a conspiracy theory, right? It's like they say the boat lost power. Supposedly, allegedly. Well, okay, so allegedly this boat lost power. Right?
Yeah. I'll get to that. Why it's like allegedly.
Okay, hit me with the legend.
I'll get to it.
Right, Will's going to be on. Will, you know what? We're going to have to do, like any good podcast, at some point we need to get into conspiracy theories, right?
Is he going to come when your friend
What's that?
shows up?
All right, just so you know, Will, here in a couple of weeks, I got one of my buddies coming to debate the World Trade Center collapse. Right, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah, you're going to be here.
Oh,
right?
that sounds fun.
I feel like I should come back.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I should put it on my calendar.
Can't put it on your calendar. I'll get you the date.
Might blow up on the whatever floor.
Yeah. All right. So, Will said that Joe Biden steered it right into the bridge pier, right? Is that what you said? Maybe. I'm sorry. You're breaking up.
I've been doing it for all the insurance money. Yep.
Okay.
So
keep
the
going.
Department can get a fat check.
All right. Keep going, Will.
So, so the reports are it lost power and slammed into one of the pylons or the pillars that was going into the river. And very soon after, the bridge collapsed entirely. And over 50,000 tons of concrete, steel, and asphalt went down in debris into the river and also onto the ship itself.
50,000 tons. Okay.
Yeah, as well as that, 6 construction workers that were doing maintenance on the bridge fell to their deaths as well during the crash into the bridge.
Okay.
So, due to this, on September 18th, the Justice Department filed a civil lawsuit in the U.S. District Court of Maryland against the owner and manager of the cargo ship, which is Grace Ocean Private Limited and Synergy Marine Private Limited, respectively, out of Singapore. And
hey, where did they? Okay, so the Justice Department filed suit against the shipping and the shipping company, but they are out of Singapore. Do they have a U.S. office and a U.S. presence? Are they incorporated within the United States?
I'm not sure. I don't think they are, because I believe that would have been stated in the press release from the Justice Department.
Okay, all right, keep going then. All right, that's going to lead to
I'm
another
assuming they were
question
just
that I
using
have.
the
But
Port of Baltimore just to do shipping. I'm not a shipping expert, but anyways, on September 18th, the Justice Department filed a civil lawsuit in the U.S. District Court of Maryland, seeking over $100 million in damages for the cleanup and recovery of all of the debris and parts of the ship that fell into the river, and to clear out the ship from the channel so commerce could continue to function properly.
okay,
And I believe that total was around $103 million they were suing the owners of the ship for.
okay,
Yeah, it was about 103 million. And this was also part of a joint filing. The owners and managers of the ship also filed an exoneration for asking for limited liability over the incident, and I believe they asked for the liability to be decreased to about $47 or $43 million. And the Justice Department at the same time filed it for over 100 million. So both filings were part of the same action. And about a month later, on October 24th of 2024, Grace Ocean Limited settled for around $101 million with the Justice Department.
hold on a second. Will, I just got questions. So the feds are suing the shipping company for $103 million, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then the shipping company asked for a limit of liability of $40 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
Had the federal court ruled on that limitation of liability?
I don't believe they have, no. They did not rule on it yet.
And yet, somehow, they settled for $101 million, and they settled this within the month, like 2 months.
Yeah, Your Honor.
And this foreign entity being sued in Maryland has settled and agreed to pay it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have they paid it?
I'm not sure if they've actually paid it yet, but they're supposed to pay it to the Coast Guard National Pollution Fund, which deals with,
The Coast Guard.
I guess, cleanup and management of like oil and that kind of stuff in the rivers and all that.
Okay, all right, cleanup. Are they going to use any of this to replace the bridge, or?
No, this is not for the bridge itself. That was
Oh.
stated very clearly in their report. They only wanted to sue them initially for the cleanup and recovery.
Okay.
The state of Maryland apparently has to sue them for that. And that could go up to an article that could have been like $2 billion.
I was going to say. So has that suit been filed yet? Do you know?
I believe it has been filed, and I'm not sure what stage they're at in that court case, but I definitely could assume they wanted to settle this one for $100 million if they're going to have to deal with a $2 billion lawsuit.
Well, okay, here's the thing that I find a little fascinating is why would they settle for 101 million instead of 103? Why settle at all? I mean, when you've got a motion to limit your liability to 40 million, but you're like, wait. I know we filed this motion, but gosh, 101 is such a much better deal.
Yeah, we better jump at that.
We better jump at that? I don't know. This.
Or was the liability for what's coming the $2 billion one?
Well, see, there's a good
For the
question.
bridge itself.
Well, that's a good question, but I'll be honest. If I was the shipping company, I would not want to have already settled anything. Yeah. I mean, because this is basically telling them, yeah, it's our fault. Yeah. Here's $100 million, and then you go to suit over the bridge itself. That is not a good plan. This boggles my mind because
the pace of this is really
the pace of this is really weird, and to be honest, I don't understand the shipping company that's not even incorporated in the United States jumping at the chance to give up $100 million. I mean, they could be liable all you want, but how are you going to get their money in Singapore? I mean, that's where people go to shell. That's where people go to avoid paying things. Is allegedly, right? You see what I'm saying, Will?
Mm-hmm. Here's what I think.
Oh, can't wait! I can't wait. I need. This is rife for a good conspiracy. Hit me, Will.
I didn't think it was a conspiracy, but I can definitely see
how do you not see them settling within a month? A good conspiracy. Somebody's getting it under the table here somewhere. Go ahead.
So, circling back to initially when I said alleged power loss.
Yeah.
So, after the disaster, FBI agents were sent onto the ship to do a criminal investigation.
Sure. And
from what they found, the Justice Department compiled a report. And let me bring it up here so I can see exactly what they said. They said there were several alleged electrical and mechanical failures on the ship that the company knew about and refused to fix, rendering the crew helpless in trying to restore power onto the ship.
Huh? Wait a minute. The FBI said there was existing problems that everybody knew about. Yep. Nobody for the shipping company wanted to fix it. And because of that, when they lost power, the crew couldn't restore power.
Yeah. So taking blame off of the crew and then putting it on the company. So it wasn't like a crew, like a human
error.
In buildings, we call that deferred maintenance.
yeah, deferred maintenance. Okay.
So that's why I think personally why once the FBI released that information and the Justice Department got a hold of it, I think they were like, oh no, they could have maybe gotten away with a lesser amount in damages, but once that came out, they were like, oh no, this really could be our fault. We should just sue and
we should just settle. We should just settle. We should just settle. We should take the deal, give it to them, and now the Coast Guard leaves us alone. But yet we gotta. Here's the thing. I don't understand, to be honest. Why wouldn't you, as a Singapore company, just say, okay, fine, I'm never doing business in the United States again. I'm keeping my $100 million, and I'm not even gonna play in that state of Maryland lawsuit. We will never survive this financially. To lose $100 million and then maybe billions. I mean, what insurance carrier is going to be like? Their insurance carrier is probably like, yeah, no, we're running away from this. This is just curious to me. This is just all sorts of curious. A
lot of it depends on the volume of shipping that company does.
That's
their
true.
Profit is, I'm going to make up numbers.
Yeah, if their bread and butter is,
if they do $400 billion of profit a year,
right,
and 8 times that in revenue per year, they just
good point.
Cash out of pocket, don't even file a claim, depending on how much volume they do. As opposed
that would be fascinating to know. You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Maybe they're like, yeah, we can't walk away from the United States as an option. Let's just settle this and move on because we're just making money hand over fist doing this.
Dale majored in cargo.
Did he? Oh, yeah, cargo shipping, cargo engineering.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's interesting.
I'd be curious too if they try to settle before the next administration comes in.
Oh,
There's-
that could be a very motivating fact. I wonder, hey, on this shipping company, was Hunter Biden a member of the board of directors there?
Oh, there we go.
Well, it's a legitimate question. I mean, he's as qualified to run a shipping company as he is to give energy
Anything else
advice
he's
to
been involved in?
Ukraine.
Sure, fair enough.
Fair enough.
Fair
Thank
enough.
you.
Yeah,
Thank
no.
you. That's a legit question.
Sure.
I was just wondering. Will's like, I didn't see that in any of my discovery. Very odd. Very odd. Okay, Will. All right, Will. So is there a lesson here? I don't know. Okay, here's the crazy part. This is the absolute crazy part, that a federal lawsuit gets to settlement this fast.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
Yeah, the size of the lawsuit, the time, I'm surprised it got filed that quickly. And then the biggest mystery in this is the pace of
The pace.
filed for 103, settled for 101 within a month.
There's something weird here.
We're missing some information.
Yeah, well, you need to get to the bottom of this conspiracy. The conspiracy in my mind is, how's the federal court? Have you ever been to federal court?
Don't answer that.
Don't answer that.
Yeah, am I at liberty? No.
No. All right. Okay.
This podcast was not made to give law advice.
Yes, thank you.
Please
Thank you.
consult an
Yeah.
attorney.
Yes, if you need actual law advice, do not get your law advice from a podcast. Nothing here is said to be sudden to take the place of actual legal consultation.
You forgot to say your disclaimer. at the
I
beginning.
did. I should have.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So it's been said. Whew, that was close. All right. Will, what you got?
Another thing that I think is also weird about this is the bigger case, the bigger lawsuit that's eventually going to come from the state of Maryland, not the federal government, because the state of Maryland federally owned, operated, and maintained it. So it is their job and their attorneys to sue or file a lawsuit against the owners of the cargo ship. And I actually read a press release about the Attorney General for Maryland,
Yeah.
I believe. He did a press release about it, and it seems like they're pretty pissed off about it, and they're going to be trying to.
Well,
get
they
every
did
cent
lose
they can out
a
of the company.
bridge.
They did lose $1 billion bridge. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm kind of on their side on this. They're kind of, I mean, allegedly, of course. But no, I mean, they really lost the bridge. That part's not alleged, but allegedly, this shipping company's on the hook for it.
And the 6 construction workers' families who died too. I believe I also read that they're also going to be filing their own lawsuits
Of course, they are.
against the
It'd be a civil.
owners.
Yeah, also a civil, very, very, very ugly civil thing.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
this could take, I believe it could take years until all the lawsuits and everything gets settled. And
See, that's why I was surprised you had anything to talk about, because this just happened this calendar year, within the
Mhm.
last calendar year, and now you're saying there's already a result on something. That is quite surprising.
yeah, I was
Alright.
really trying to look see if they had anything settled
Yeah.
yet, like the case fully concluded, and this was
Good.
the only one that I found that was settled and everything was done.
All right. All right. Well, that is an interesting case. I appreciate you doing a little bit of research into it and doing the case study for us. All right. All right. Hey,
No problem.
just a note for everybody in the class: if you could email me, just want to make sure I got my records right. Tell me how many of these podcasts that you've attended, either in person or online, and then also if you've done the case study. Just give me a total so I get the extra credit part right. I need to be filing grades. Let's see here. The final exam is due by Sunday, and I need to file grades shortly after that. So, with that in mind, I'd like to thank all of you for attending these. And hey, I'll put this on announcements too. But if you found this part, this addition here that is not normally done in a class, interesting, this is something new. I just literally made up and decided to try at the last minute before break. I think it's been entertaining and been fun. And if this has been helpful to you in any way at all, please make sure you mention that in the course reviews, or let me know one way or the other, because if it's a waste of time, we'll just stop doing it. But if it finds some value in it, I'd sure like to know. So fill out your course evaluations and drop me an email if you get the time. All right? All right. With that in mind, I think we're about ready to wrap up. Any last thoughts or questions before you take that final exam? Kaylee or Vivian or Will or Anna, any of you that are in the class?
I have a question. This is not like related to the exam, but more like career advice of how do you um how do you one of the guests talked about like selling yourself to a
Yeah.
company and like explaining why you'd be a good fit for that position or that company. But I was just wondering if anyone had any advice for like how to do that.
I'll jump in real quick. Russ, you can answer as well. But one thing to do is research the heck out of the company that you're interviewing with. Understand what their as a company, what their core business is. If they have an opening posted, understand how that connects to them being successful as a company. If they have core values listed, jot those down on a old school on a piece of paper, have them written down with hand. You're not on a phone or on a tablet when you're doing the interview. You're actually fully engaged with them during the interview. But research the heck out of the company and the job that you're interviewing for, and then impress them with how much you know about the company, and then also impress them with the sophistication of questions that you have about the company that you're curious about, because you're interviewing them just like they're interviewing you. And if they know that you're taking it serious, either consciously or unconsciously, that helps them understand how sophisticated you are as a person and gives them an early look on how you conduct yourself in a professional setting. So if you show up prepared, you don't have to be overdressed, but dress professionally. It speaks volumes as well. But understand their business and show up with some sophisticated questions about their company and the role that you're interviewing for.
And to tap onto that too, something I always look at and appreciate is, we get a stack of resumes, a whole bunch of engineering students. They've taken a lot of the same classes, done a lot of the same things, have very similar skill sets. But what are you beyond that? What do you like to do for fun? Be prepared for that. If I'm going to hire you and work with you every day, we're not going to sit and talk about ductwork and HVAC systems and electrical systems, whatever that might be, the whole time. Do you fit the team? Do you fit the culture? And don't shy away from that. I find people do business with the people they like and with people they trust.
In other words, be real.
Yes, exactly, and be yourself. And I talk a lot about the recipes I like to try, or the backpacking I like to do. Things like that. It's like it breaks it up and turns it more into a casual conversation as opposed to an intimidating interview.
I would also say don't get too carried away on it. So there's the industry and companies go through trends, and there's a trend now about this. The catchphrase is work-life balance. I wouldn't lead with, "Hey, what's the work-life balance?" Because that gets interpreted as, "Hey, I want to be, I want to work as little as I can, and I want to have as much fun as I can, and so I'm looking for a company that allows me to have a whole bunch of fun on my own." That'll go against you. Let them know that work-life balance is important to you, so you want to understand how to what the time commitment is for somebody to be successful in the role that they're filling, so that you can figure out how to fit that into your life. But don't get too carried away with the idea of work-life balance, because that can work against you depending on their interpretation of that. So I guess after I say all that, I suppose the advice would be ask them, for somebody to be successful in that role, how long does it take to come up to speed? And then also how many hours per week do they expect somebody to work in order to get up to speed quickly, because you want to get up to speed quickly and be productive for them, and acknowledge that you don't know everything and you're going to need to learn a lot. That shows that you're willing to do some training, and that you're not race ready on day one, but have them describe what it's going to take for you based on where you're at the point of the interview to getting fully independent in that role and successful on your own.
All right. Vivian, did you have anything to follow up with that on?
No, I just kind of wanted some advice on that.
Okay. All right. Good to go.
That was really helpful. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else here for the class, or anything else otherwise? Right? No. All right. Anna, shocked that you didn't ask Dale about any riots that we might have attended together, based on the class. Allegedly, but it's too late now, all right, because we are wrapping up here, okay? With that in mind, thank you, everyone. Thank you for the people that tuned in online on the Zoom call. Sure appreciate it. A special thank you to our guests that trekked here and made the trip. I sure appreciate it. And with that, we're going to wrap up another session of Office Hours.